The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime had never felt so cold. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the center of the circular room, surrounded by thousands of alien representatives from across the galaxy. Their eyes, in every shape and color imaginable, all focused on him with the same expression: judgment. Dr. Lisa Harper sat in the human delegation section behind him, her hands gripping the data pad that contained their final warning. She had spent months preparing the evidence, the proof that something terrible was coming from beyond the galaxy. But looking at the hostile faces around them, she knew it would not matter. Counselor Vexithara rose from her seat high above the chamber floor. The Zilani leader's forearms spread wide as her voice echoed through the hall. The time for discussion has ended. Humanity has shown itself to be a threat to galactic peace. They expand too quickly, build too many weapons, and refuse to accept the limits we place on all civilized species. Morrison kept his face calm, but his jaw tightened. Behind him, Captain Ryan Cole shifted in his seat, the young officer's anger visible to anyone who looked. The captain represented the new generation of humans, those who had grown up in space, who saw the galaxy as their home. Now they were being told to leave. "We have given them chances," Vexithara continued. "We have warned them about their aggressive nature. Yet they continue to push into new systems, to build military stations, to act as if they own the stars themselves." An alien from the hegemony sector stood up. "The humans saved my world from raiders just last year. How is protecting others a crime?" "Exactly the problem," Vexithara snapped. "They act without permission. They make decisions that affect all of us. They think they know better than species who have traveled space for thousands of years." Morrison finally spoke. "We act when others will not. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Is this not what the coalition was meant to do?" Chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens agreed with Morrison, but more supported Vexithara. The debate had been going on for weeks, but everyone knew the real vote had been decided long ago. Fear had won over friendship. Dr. Harper looked at her datapad again. The signals from deep space were getting stronger. Something was moving toward their galaxy. Something that had destroyed entire civilizations before. The ancient ruins they had found told a story of terror, of worlds consumed and left empty. But none of these aliens wanted to hear about distant threats when they were focused on the immediate problem of human expansion. "The vote will now begin," announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had helped found the coalition centuries ago. "All in favor of Resolution 2387 Prime, the removal of humanity from coalition space and the restriction of human activity to designated areas beyond the galactic rim." The voting lights began to appear throughout the chamber. Red for yes, blue for no. Morrison watched as section after section lit up red. 847 red lights, only 23 blue ones. The speaker's voice was formal and cold. "Resolution 2387 Prime passes. Humanity has 90 standard days to remove all personnel, equipment, and installations from coalition space. Any human presence after this deadline will be considered an act of war." Morrison stepped forward. The chamber fell silent, waiting for his response. He had prepared this speech for weeks, knowing this moment would come. But standing there, looking at the faces of beings his people had fought beside, traded with, even died for, the words felt heavier than he had expected. "We came to you in peace 150 years ago," Morrison began. "When first contact happened, we offered friendship. We shared our technology, our culture, our knowledge. We helped build colonies, fought beside you against pirates and raiders, stood with you when others threatened the peace." The chamber remained silent. Even Vexithara did not interrupt. "You say we expand too quickly." "Yes, we do. We say we build too many weapons." "Yes, we do. We are what we are, and we will not change to make you comfortable. But understand this. We were never your enemy. We were your shield. Morrison's voice grew stronger. Dr. Harper has data that you refuse to hear. There are signals coming from beyond our galaxy. Ancient ruins tell of something that destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than any of us. We have been preparing for threats you cannot imagine. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. A few had heard whispers of Harper's research, but the council leadership had buried it under political concerns. You choose to remove us because you fear what we might become. But you should fear what is already coming. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers you have forgotten. When the darkness arrives, and it will arrive, remember that you sent away the only species that would have stood with you until the end. Morrison paused, letting his words sink in. We will honor your decision. We will leave your space and take our people with us. But we leave you with this warning. What is coming will not care about your politics or your fear of us. It will not negotiate or compromise. It will simply consume. And when that day comes, you will remember this moment and wish you had chosen differently. Dr. Harper stood and activated her datapad. The chamber's main display lit up with star charts, energy readings, and ancient symbols. These signals started 3 years ago. They are getting stronger and moving in our direction. The ruins we found show clear evidence of massive destruction, caused by something from outside our galaxy. This is not politics or manipulation. This is a warning based on scientific evidence. Vexathara waved her hand dismissively. More human fear tactics. They want us to believe we need them. This is exactly why they must go. Harper looked directly at her. In 5 to 10 years, you will detect these signals yourself. By then, it may be too late to prepare. We offered to help you get ready. Now you will have to face it alone. Morrison nodded to his delegation. We will begin the evacuation immediately. Our ships will be gone within the deadline. But remember our words when the time comes. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, a few aliens watched them with worried expressions. A young Altarian scientist had been studying Harper's data privately and knew she was right about the signals. An old Centauri general remembered fighting beside human soldiers and trusted their judgment about military threats. But they were outnumbered by those who preferred the comfortable lie that humans were the only danger they faced. Captain Cole caught up with Morrison in the corridor outside the chamber. Sir, some of our people want to stay and fight this decision. They say this is our home too. Morrison shook his head. No, Ryan. We keep our word, even when others break theirs. We leave with dignity and honor. But we also leave prepared for what comes next. Behind them, Dr. Harper was already working on her portable computer, sending encrypted messages to the deep space monitoring stations. If the Coalition would not listen to warnings, then humanity would have to prepare alone. The signals from beyond the galaxy were getting stronger every day, and she knew their time was running out. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile, and Commander Alex Bennett stood on the bridge of the HSV Pathfinder, watching a sight that would have amazed the Coalition leaders who had forced humanity out. 12 thriving human worlds stretched across this region of space beyond the galactic rim, each one bustling with activity and innovation that surpassed anything they had built while under Coalition restrictions. Bennett was the son of refugees, born during the long journey to these new territories. He had never seen Coalition space, but he had grown up hearing stories of the betrayal and the warnings that had been ignored. Now, at 35, he commanded one of humanity's most advanced exploration vessels, pushing deeper into unknown space than any species had ever dared to go. Engineer Maya Torres looked up from her console with excitement in her eyes. Alex, you need to see this. The energy readings from that system ahead are unlike anything we have encountered before. Bennett moved to her station and studied the data. 3 planets in the system showed signs of massive artificial structures, but there were no life signs at all. The energy signatures were old, very old, but still detectable after what appeared to be thousands of years. Take us in slowly, Bennett ordered. Full scans of everything. If someone built cities that big and then disappeared, I want to know what happened to them. The Pathfinder moved carefully into the system. What they found on the first planet made the entire crew stop and stare. Massive crystalline structures covered the surface, each one perfectly geometric and stretching for kilometers. But they were not buildings in any sense that humans understood. They looked more like growths, as if something had converted the entire planet's surface into some kind of alien material. Dr. Sam White, the ship's archaeologist, was practically vibrating with excitement as they prepared to land. This could be the discovery of a lifetime, a completely unknown civilization with technology we cannot even begin to understand. Maya Torres was less optimistic as she studied the engineering readings. The energy patterns are wrong, Sam. These structures are not just old, they are dead. Whatever made them is not coming back. The landing party included Bennett, Dr. White, Torres, and a small security team. As they walked among the crystalline formations, White used his scanners to analyze the material. What he found made him stop in his tracks. This is not just alien technology, White said slowly. This used to be a city. These crystals were created by converting the original buildings and possibly the inhabitants into this new form. Something changed the fundamental structure of matter itself. Bennett felt a chill run down his spine. You mean someone, or something, turned an entire civilization into these crystal formations? That appears to be exactly what happened, White confirmed. And based on the decay patterns, this happened roughly 3,000 years ago. But Alex, there are 2 more planets in this system with the same crystal formations. Over the next week, they explored all 3 worlds. Each one told the same story: advanced civilizations that had been converted into crystalline structures. Dr. White found evidence that these beings had called themselves the first builders and had created technology that spanned multiple star systems. They had been peaceful explorers and scientists, much like humanity was becoming. Maya Torres made the most disturbing discovery while analyzing the conversion process. The crystals are not random. They form patterns that suggest intelligence behind the conversion. Whatever did, this was not just destroying these civilizations, it was harvesting them for some purpose. Dr. White found the answer in the ruins of what had been a First Builder archive. The crystalline conversion had partially preserved their records, and with careful work, he was able to extract data that painted a terrifying picture. They called them the Devourers, White explained to the assembled team. Entities that arrive from the space between galaxies every few thousand years. They consume entire worlds, converting all matter and energy into more of themselves. The First Builders had encountered them before and thought they had found a way to hide until the Devourers moved on. Bennett studied the ancient records with growing alarm. But they did not hide successfully. No, they did not. And according to these records, the Devourers operate on a cycle. They consume what they can from a galaxy and then move on to the next one. But they always return to check for new growth. Maya Torres had been running calculations while White explained the records. Her face was pale when she looked up. If their cycle is 3,000 years and this happened 3,000 years ago, then they are due to return soon. The team worked around the clock to extract more information from the First Builder archives. What they learned was both invaluable and terrifying. The First Builders had developed weapons and defensive systems specifically designed to fight the Devourers. But they had not been enough. However, their technology provided blueprints that could give humanity a fighting chance. Dr. White made another crucial discovery in the deepest archives. The First Builders sent out warning signals to other galaxies before they fell. They were trying to warn everyone about the Devourers. But there is something else here that is more immediate. He showed them star charts that had been updated right up until the end. The Devourers do not just randomly search for galaxies to consume. They follow energy trails left by developing civilizations. And according to these charts, they were moving toward our galaxy when they destroyed this one. Bennett realized the implications immediately. The signals that Dr. Harper detected 50 years ago. She was right. Something was coming toward our galaxy from beyond the rim. Maya Torres was already working on her portable computer, connecting to the automated monitoring stations that humanity had left at the edge of Coalition space. Alex, I am picking up massive energy signatures moving through deep space. They are still far away, but they are definitely heading toward our galaxy. The discovery changed everything for humanity. Within days, messages were sent to all human worlds. The peaceful expansion and exploration would continue, but now they had a purpose that went beyond simple growth. They were preparing for war, against an enemy that consumed entire civilizations. Colony leader Kate Sullivan coordinated the response from New Terra, the largest human settlement. We need to increase ship production immediately. Every world needs defensive systems based on first builder technology. And we need to warn the Coalition, even though they exiled us. Bennett agreed, but knew the warning would likely be ignored, just as Dr. Harper's had been 50 years earlier. We will send the warning, but we cannot count on them listening. We have to assume we will face this threat alone. Maya Torres had been studying the first builder defensive systems and was already designing human versions. The good news is that we have had 50 years of unrestricted development. Our technology has advanced far beyond what we had when we left Coalition space. Combined with first builder knowledge, we might actually have a chance. Dr. White continued analyzing the archives and made one final discovery that gave them hope. The first builders were not the only civilization to fight the Devourers. There are references to others who survived by working together. The key is not running or hiding, but standing and fighting as a united force. As the Pathfinder prepared to return to human space with their discoveries, Bennett looked back at the crystal worlds one last time. Somewhere in those formations were the remains of billions of beings who had thought they were safe. They had been wrong, but their sacrifice had provided humanity with the knowledge needed to possibly succeed where they had failed. The return journey would take weeks, but already Maya Torres was working on new ship designs that incorporated first builder technology. Dr. White was preparing detailed reports on Devourer tactics and weaknesses, and Bennett was planning how to convince the human leadership that their peaceful exile was about to end in the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Elena Cross had aged gracefully in the 67 years since she had first met humans, but today she felt every one of those years as she stood before the Coalition Council once again. She was the only human who had refused to leave during the Great Exile, choosing instead to remain as an unofficial observer and reminder of what the Coalition had lost. The message from human space had arrived 3 days ago through encrypted channels that Elena had maintained secretly for decades. The content was terrifying. An ancient enemy called the Devourers was approaching the galaxy, and humanity had proof of their destructive power. Commander Bennett's discoveries among the first builder ruins painted a picture of complete annihilation that awaited every living world in the galaxy. Elena activated her personal transmitter and began broadcasting the human warning to the full council assembly. Images of the crystallized worlds appeared on the main display, along with energy readings that showed massive objects moving through deep space toward their galaxy. Counselor Vexithara, now older but still leading the anti-human faction, immediately stood to object. This is exactly the kind of manipulation we expected from the humans. They create a fictional threat to make us believe we need them back. How convenient that only they have this evidence. But Counselor Brixton from the Hegemony faction was studying the data more carefully. He was younger than most council members, having joined after humanity's exile, and he had always questioned whether the decision had been wise. These energy signatures appear genuine, and the archaeological evidence from the crystal worlds is extensive. We should at least investigate these claims. Elena stepped forward and addressed the council directly. Counselors, I have lived among you for decades since my people were exiled. I have no reason to lie or manipulate. This warning comes from scientific evidence, not political desire. The humans are not asking to return or seeking any benefit for themselves. They are simply warning us of a threat that will destroy everything we have built. General Vax Korthal, the military commander of the Coalition Defense Force, was more interested in the technical aspects of the warning. If these devourers are real, what do we know about their capabilities? How do we fight something that can convert entire worlds into crystal formations? Elena shared the technical data that Commander Bennett had discovered in the first Builder archives. The information showed weapons and tactics that the ancient civilization had developed, but also made clear that they had ultimately failed to stop the devourers. The humans have been developing new defensive technologies based on this ancient knowledge, Elena explained. They offer to share this information freely with the Coalition, despite how they were treated during the exile. Vexthara's response was immediate and angry. More manipulation. They want us to become dependent on their technology so they can force their way back into Coalition space. This is exactly why we removed them in the first place. Several younger council members began asking questions about the evidence, but the older leadership quickly shut down the discussion. Councillor Brixton attempted to organize a formal investigation committee, but he was overruled by a vote of the senior members. Meanwhile, in the depths of Coalition Intelligence Headquarters, Chief Nora Blake was conducting her own analysis of the human warning. Blake had been placed in Coalition Intelligence decades ago as part of a deep cover operation that even Elena did not know about. Her job was to monitor threats to both humanity and the galaxy as a whole. Blake's own sensors had been detecting the same energy signatures that the humans reported. The objects moving through deep space were massive, far larger than any known ships, and they were definitely heading toward the galaxy. Her attempts to warn Coalition leadership had been buried in bureaucratic procedures and political considerations. As Blake studied the first Builder data that Elena had shared, she realized that the Coalition was completely unprepared for what was coming. Their weapons were designed for fighting other civilized species, not entities that could convert matter itself. Their tactics assumed rational enemies who could be negotiated with or deterred. Blake made a difficult decision that went against all her training. She began covertly sharing Coalition intelligence data with human forces beyond the Galactic Rim. If the official leadership would not prepare for the threat, then she would help those who were willing to fight. The first signs of the approaching danger appeared 6 months after Elena delivered the human warning. 3 star systems at the very edge of Coalition space simply went dark. Their communication signals stopped, their energy signatures disappeared, and when General Korthal sent scout ships to investigate, they found nothing but empty space where stars had once burned. The scout ship reports were classified immediately, but Blake made sure copies reached both Elena and the human monitoring stations. The evidence was now undeniable. Something was consuming star systems at the galaxy's edge. General Korthal demanded an emergency meeting with the Council leadership. Whatever destroyed those systems is unlike anything we have ever encountered. The stars themselves are gone, not just the planets. We need to mobilize the entire defense force immediately. But even faced with this evidence, the Council leadership hesitated. Vexthara insisted that the disappearing systems were probably just equipment failures or natural phenomena. We cannot panic the entire galaxy based on 3 missing signals. There are many explanations that do not involve ancient monsters from space. Councillor Brixton finally lost his patience with the political games. 3 star systems have disappeared completely. The humans warned us this would happen and provided detailed evidence. How much more proof do you need before you admit that? We made a mistake. Elena watched the debate with growing despair. Even with undeniable evidence of the threat, the Coalition leadership was more concerned with saving face than saving lives. She began sending regular updates to human space, knowing that they would need as much warning as possible to prepare their defenses. Dr. Veltar, a young scientist from the Academic Council, had been studying the human data in secret. Unlike the political leaders, Veltar understood the scientific implications of what the humans had discovered. The energy conversion process that created the crystal worlds was beyond anything known to galactic science, and the scale of the threat was impossible to ignore. Veltar attempted to present her analysis to the full council, but was blocked by senior members who did not want to give credibility to human warnings. Frustrated by the political obstacles, she began working directly with Elena to share scientific data with human researchers. As more systems disappeared and refugee ships began arriving with stories of impossible enemies that consumed entire worlds, the coalition finally began to take action. But their response was too little and too late. General Korthal's fleets were deployed to the Galactic Rim, but they were equipped with conventional weapons that had no effect on the approaching devourers. Blake continued her covert intelligence, sharing, knowing that she was committing treason, but understanding that the survival of the galaxy was more important than political loyalty. Through her efforts, human forces received detailed information about coalition defensive positions, fleet movements, and civilian evacuation plans. Elena made one final attempt to convince the Council to accept human assistance. The offer still stands. Humanity will share their new defensive technologies and fight alongside coalition forces. Pride and past mistakes matter nothing when faced with extinction. Vexithera's response summarized the attitude that would doom the coalition to face the devourers alone. We will handle this threat ourselves. We do not need help from the species we exiled for good reason. If these devourers are real, then coalition science and military force will be sufficient to stop them. As Elena left the council chambers for the last time, she knew that the galaxy was about to face its darkest hour. The humans had tried to warn them, tried to help them, and been rejected again. Now everyone would pay the price for the coalitions. Pride and fear of admitting they had been wrong about humanity. Fleet Admiral Tony Mitchell stood on the command deck of the HSV Defender watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The new human fleet had grown far beyond what anyone in the coalition could have imagined during the exile 50 years ago. 1,200 ships equipped with hybrid human-first builder technology spread across the formation, each one capable of fighting enemies that coalition forces could not even scratch. But Mitchell felt no joy in being proven right. The reports, coming from coalition space, were horrifying beyond description. Entire systems were being consumed at an alarming rate as the devourer invasion began in earnest. The enemy was not just destroying civilizations, they were converting them into more of themselves, growing stronger with every world they touched. Captain Nina Foster burst onto the bridge with urgent news. At 26, she was the youngest, ship commander in the human fleet. But her tactical innovations had already saved 3 colonies from devourer scouts. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from Coalition space. It is coming through official military channels. Mitchell nodded grimly. He had been expecting this message for months. Put it through, Captain. The image that appeared on the main screen showed Admiral Zeth Kala, the Coalition fleet commander who had once called humans a threat to galactic peace. Now his face was haggard with exhaustion and fear. Behind him, Mitchell could see the chaos of a command center under siege. Admiral Mitchell, Zeth Kala began, his voice breaking with emotion. I am transmitting on behalf of the Coalition Council. We were wrong. We were wrong about everything. The humans tried to warn us and we refused to listen. Now our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can deploy them. We need help. The bridge fell silent as Zeth Kala continued. These devourers are unlike anything we have encountered. Our weapons have no effect on their ships. They adapt to our tactics within hours. Entire battle fleets are being converted into their forces. We estimate that we have lost 60% of our military capacity in the past month. Mitchell felt the eyes of his bridge crew on him. Many of them were the children and grandchildren of the original exiles. They had grown, up hearing stories of coalition betrayal and rejection. Several officers wanted to let the coalition face the consequences of their choices alone. "Admiral," Zethkala's voice was barely a whisper now, "billions of innocent beings are dying every day. Whatever mistakes our leaders made, the people of this galaxy do not deserve to face extinction because of political pride. If there is any mercy in humanity, please help us." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Captain Foster spoke first. "Sir, the crew is asking what our response will be. Many want to know why we should risk human lives for people who threw us out of our homes." Mitchell understood their anger, but he also understood something that the younger officers had not yet learned. "Captain, gather the senior staff in the briefing room. We need to discuss our options." Within an hour, the command staff of the human fleet had assembled. Mitchell looked around the table at faces that showed every emotion from rage to sympathy. Dr. Sam White had joined them via secure transmission from the research station where he was analyzing captured Devourer technology. "The situation is simple," Mitchell began. "The Coalition is facing complete annihilation. Their conventional forces cannot fight the Devourers effectively. Without help, every inhabited world in the galaxy will be consumed within 2 years." Commander Bennett, now serving as Mitchell's strategic advisor, pulled up the latest intelligence reports. "Our sources in Coalition space confirm Admiral Zethkala's assessment. The Devourers are not just winning, they are accelerating their expansion. Each world they convert provides them with more resources and ships." Captain Foster raised the question that was on everyone's mind. "Admiral, why should we care? They exiled us. They ignored our warnings. They chose this fate for themselves." Mitchell had wrestled with the same question for weeks as the reports from Coalition space grew more desperate. "Because if the galaxy falls, we will face the Devourers alone eventually. And because spite is a luxury we cannot afford when facing extinction." Dr. White's voice came through the communication system with scientific urgency. "Admiral, I have been analyzing the Devourer conversion process. They are not just consuming individual worlds anymore. They are beginning to link converted systems together into some kind of massive network. If they complete this process across the galaxy, their combined power might be unstoppable." The strategic implications were clear to everyone in the room. Mitchell made his decision. "We will respond to the Coalition's request for aid. But we do this on our terms. We are not returning as exiles begging for readmission. We are coming as saviors with the galaxy's only hope for survival." Commander Bennett began working out the tactical details immediately. "Sir, we will need to coordinate with Dr. White's research team to identify the most critical systems to defend. We cannot save everyone, but we might be able to create defensive lines that slow the Devourer advance." Mitchell nodded. "Captain Foster, I want you to lead a strike force to extract Coalition civilians and scientists from the most threatened worlds. We need their knowledge and their people, even if their governments failed them." The next phase of the war began. Within days, human ships equipped with first builder weapons technology began appearing in Coalition space, engaging Devourer forces that had been advancing unchecked for months. The difference was immediately apparent. Where Coalition weapons had been completely ineffective, human plasma disruptors could actually damage Devourer ships. The conversion beams that had turned entire fleets into enemy forces could be blocked by human energy shields. For the first time since the invasion began, the Devourers faced real resistance. Captain Foster led her strike force deep into Devourer-controlled space to rescue survivors from a research station that had been studying ancient technologies. The mission was incredibly dangerous, but the data they recovered provided crucial insights into Devourer weaknesses. "The key is their conversion process," Dr. White explained during an emergency briefing. "They cannot convert matter that is protected by certain energy frequencies. The first builders discovered this and built their weapons around disrupting those frequencies." Meanwhile, Admiral Mitchell began receiving reports from human commanders throughout the galaxy. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics, but slowly. Unlike with coalition forces, they could not simply overwhelm human defenses through superior numbers. The turning point came when Captain Foster discovered something unexpected during a rescue mission to the Altair system. As her ships fought to evacuate civilians, she detected massive energy readings from the system's fourth planet. "Admiral, you need to see this," Foster transmitted from her flagship. "The planet has some kind of ancient installation buried under the surface. The energy signature matches First Builder technology, but it is much larger than anything we found in the ruins." Dr. White's analysis confirmed Foster's discovery. It appears to be a weapon system designed specifically to fight the Devourers. But, Admiral, it requires rare elements that can only be found in the galaxy's core systems that are currently under heavy attack. Mitchell realized what this meant. We need to launch an expedition to the galactic core to retrieve these elements, but that means fighting through the heaviest Devourer concentrations in the galaxy. "Commander," Bennett volunteered immediately. "Sir, let me lead the mission. We have the ships and the technology. This might be our only chance to find a weapon that can actually stop them." As the human fleet prepared for the most dangerous mission in galactic history, reports continued to arrive from across Coalition space. Some worlds had been saved by human intervention, but many more had fallen to the relentless Devourer advance. The galaxy was running out of time, and humanity's return as saviors was only the beginning of the final battle for survival. Mitchell looked out at the stars, knowing that everything would be decided in the next few months. Humanity had answered. The Coalition's desperate call for help, not out of forgiveness, but out of necessity. Now they had to prove that their exile had made them strong enough to save a galaxy that had once rejected them. Supreme Commander Jack Sterling stood in the command center of the massive human space station that had been built in secret during the 50 years of exile. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire galaxy with red zones marking areas under Devourer control. Nearly 40% of all inhabited systems had fallen, but today that would change. Dr. Lisa Harper, now 89 years old but still sharp as ever, sat at the central planning console reviewing the final calculations. She had lived to see her warnings proven correct, though she took no satisfaction in being right about such a terrible threat. "Jack, the resonance cascade calculations are complete. If we can activate the first builder weapon at the galactic core, it will disrupt every Devourer ship within 50,000 light years." Commander Bennett had returned from his dangerous mission to the core systems just days earlier. His ships loaded with the rare crystalline elements needed to power the ancient weapon. The journey had cost them 12 ships and hundreds of lives, but they had succeeded in retrieving enough material to fuel the device that could save the galaxy. Admiral Maya Torres, now commanding the largest human fleet ever assembled, reported from her flagship. "Supreme Commander, all battle groups are in position. We have 1,500 ships ready to escort the weapon platform to the galactic core. The Coalition forces that are still operational have agreed to provide support." Sterling looked at the tactical display showing human ships scattered across 3 sectors of space. It had taken every vessel they could build and every pilot they could train to make this final assault possible. If they failed here, there would be no second chance. "Admiral Torres, begin the operation. Dr. Harper, start the activation sequence for the first builder weapon. This ends today, one way or another." The human fleet moved through space like a silver river flowing toward the galaxy's heart. At the center of the formation, a massive cylindrical device built from first builder blueprints hummed with barely contained energy. The weapon was larger than most space stations and required constant power from 6 fusion reactors just to maintain stable operation. As they approached the galactic core, Devourer resistance increased dramatically. The enemy had concentrated their forces around the most energy-rich systems, converting multiple worlds into massive shipbuilding facilities. The space around the core was thick with converted vessels, each one pulsing with the same crystalline energy that had consumed so many civilizations. Captain Nina Foster led the first wave of human fighters against the Devourer defensive line. Her tactical innovations had evolved during months of combat, and she now commanded pilots who could fight the adaptive enemy on equal terms. All squadrons, remember that they learn from every engagement. Change your attack patterns constantly and never give them time to adapt. The battle for the galactic core was unlike anything in recorded history. Human ships equipped with first builder weapons fought against enemies that could convert matter itself into new weapons. Energy beams that could crystallize entire moons clashed with plasma disruptors that could tear holes in space. Admiral Torres coordinated the massive fleet action while protecting the weapon platform from Devourer attempts to destroy it. Sterling, they are throwing everything they have at us. My estimates show we are facing over 10,000 converted ships, and more are arriving every hour. Dr. Harper monitored the weapon's charging process with growing concern. The device needs 6 more hours to reach full power. The energy requirements are enormous, and any damage to the platform could cause a cascade failure. Sterling made the hardest decision of his military career. Admiral Torres, I want half the fleet to break off and begin a diversionary attack on the secondary Devourer stronghold. Draw their forces away from the core. Torres understood what Sterling was asking. Sir, that will leave the weapon platform with minimal protection. If the Devourers concentrate their remaining forces here, we might not be able to hold them off. I know, Sterling replied grimly. But if we do not give the weapon time to charge, none of this matters anyway. The human fleet split into 2 forces, with Torres leading 800 ships away from the core in a desperate gambit to divide Devourer attention. Her ships engaged massive converted battle stations that had once been coalition worlds, fighting with the fury of beings who knew this was their last chance. At the galactic core, Sterling watched as wave after wave of Devourer ships attacked the weapon platform. Human defenders fought with everything they had, but the enemy seemed endless. For every Devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. Dr. Harper's voice carried across the command center with quiet urgency. Jack, I am detecting something unexpected. The Devourers are not just trying to destroy the weapon. They are trying to convert it. If they succeed, they could turn our own device against us. Sterling realized the full horror of what Harper had discovered. If the Devourers converted the first builder weapon, they would have access to technology that could consume entire galaxies in days rather than years. How long until the weapon is ready to fire? 2 more hours, Harper replied. But the conversion beams are getting stronger. I do not know if we can hold them off that long. Captain Foster's voice came through the communication system from her fighter squadron. Sir, I have an idea. The Devourers adapt to our tactics, but they have never faced a kamikaze attack. If we overload our ship reactors and ram their conversion vessels, we might be able to disrupt their beams long enough for the weapon to charge. Sterling felt his heart break as he realized what Foster was proposing. Captain, that is a suicide mission. I cannot ask you and your pilots to sacrifice yourselves. You are not asking, sir. We are volunteering. This is what we trained for. Over the next hour, Sterling watched as dozens of human ships made the ultimate sacrifice, ramming into Devourer vessels to protect the weapon platform. Captain Foster led the final assault herself, diving her damaged fighter directly into the main conversion beam generator. With the Devourer conversion beams disrupted, Dr. Harper was able to complete the weapon's charging sequence. Jack, we are ready. The resonance cascade will propagate through subspace and disrupt every Devourer ship in this galaxy. But once we fire, there is no stopping it. Sterling gave the order that would end the war. Fire the weapon. The first builder device unleashed energy on a scale that defied comprehension. A wave of resonance cascaded outward from the galactic core, traveling faster than light through dimensions that existed beyond normal space. Wherever the wave touched Devourer ships, their conversion systems failed catastrophically. Across the galaxy, crystalline vessels that had seemed unstoppable began breaking apart as their fundamental conversion processes reversed. Worlds that had been converted back to crystal began returning to their original matter states. The Devourer network that had threatened to consume everything collapsed in a matter of hours. Admiral Torres reported from the diversionary fleet with amazement in her voice. "Supreme Commander, the Devourers are retreating. Their remaining ships are fleeing toward the Galactic Rim and beyond. The threat is over." In the aftermath, the galaxy faced a choice about its future. The Coalition Council, humbled by their near extinction, formally requested that humanity rejoin galactic civilization. But Sterling and the human leadership had learned too much during their exile to simply return to the old ways. Peter Chang, representing the new human government, addressed the rebuilt Coalition Council with terms that would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity will rejoin the galactic community, but as equals, not subjects. We will share our technology and knowledge freely, but we will also maintain our independence and our responsibility as guardians against future threats. The new galactic order that emerged was built on the lessons learned during humanity's exile and return. Exploration and preparation took precedence over political convenience. Early warning systems monitored the space between galaxies for signs of other threats. And humanity took on the role they had always been meant to fill, protectors of those who could not protect themselves. Dr. Harper, in her final years, established monitoring stations beyond the galactic rim to watch for the Devourer's eventual return. "They will come back someday," she told Sterling, "but next time, we will be ready for them." The galaxy had learned that unity forged through shared struggle was stronger than any alliance built on fear or convenience. Humanity's exile had made them stronger, and their return had saved everyone. The consequences had indeed arrived, but they had brought salvation rather than destruction.